Hello everyone. We are going to make the delicate face scrubby pattern today. I am putting a few together for a gift. I am using a cotton yarn, it's medium weight. This one is Lion Brand 24/7 in color Ecru. I really like this cotton yarn. It's got a little bit of a sheen to it, so it makes it really pretty when the item is put together. You're also going to need an E-hook, a stitch marker for working in the round, and a pair of scissors. So let's start by making a magic ring. And we're going to place 6 single crochets into the magic ring. Tighten the ring, and we're going to join to the first single crochet of the round with a slip stitch and chain 1. Your chain ones will not count in your stitch count. Okay. Next, we're going to make half double crochets in the next round, and we're going to increase in each stitch around. So by the time we get to the end of the round, we will have 12 half double crochets. So a half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over again with the working yarn and pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So let's go ahead and make another half double crochet in the exact same stitch so that we've increased. And I'm going to place my stitch marker in the first stitch of the round. So we're going to continue with half double crochets all the way around, increasing in each stitch. Okay, we can see our chain 1 here from the previous round, and we're not going to stitch in that, doesn't count. And here is our first stitch with our stitch marker in it. We're going to remove the stitch marker and join the round with a slip stitch. So go into that first half double crochet and slip stitch and chain 1, which again will not count in our stitch count. Okay, for this round, we're going to create a bean stitch, or what I refer to as bean stitch, in each stitch around. When you're creating the bean stitch, you will chain 1 to close. So we will have 12 of these little bean stitches at the end of the round, but our total stitch count will be 24 because of the chains that we close them with. So when we get to the end of the round, we will actually have 24 stitches. That can be a little confusing when it says we're making 12 bean stitches, but we end up with 24 stitches when we start the next round. So you're actually increasing in a way with the bean stitch because you're closing it with a chain. So to create the bean stitch, we're going to go into the next stitch, pull up a loop. You now have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, insert back into the same stitch, pull up a loop. We have 4. We're going to do that 2 more times. Yarn over, pull up a loop, 6, yarn over, insert back into the same stitch, pull up a loop. So now we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 loops on the hook. Yarn over with your working yarn and pull it through all 8 loops on the hook and chain 1 to close. So I'm going to put a stitch marker in that first stitch. So there's the bean stitch, and then there's our chain 1 to close. And we're going to repeat that in each stitch around. So let's go ahead, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, continue to do that 3 more times until you end up with 8 loops on the hook. Pull through all 8 loops and chain 1 to close. And we're going to continue that to the end of the round. Okay, the last bean stitch of the round here. Close it with a chain stitch, and now we're going to slip stitch to the first bean stitch of the round and chain 1. Now we're going to work 1 half double crochet in each stitch around. So by the time we get to the end of this round, we will have 24 half double crochets. Go ahead and put our stitch marker into that first one and continue around. As you're working up this pattern, you may notice that it curls in just a little bit. That's okay, because when we do the last round of slip stitches to complete this pattern, that will kind of pull out the edge and flatten the scrubby a little bit. So your finished item will look more flat like this instead of curling in like this right now. Okay, last half double crochet here of this round. We're going to join with a slip stitch to that first half double crochet and chain 1. Now we're going to work 1 bean stitch in each stitch around, so that when we get to the end of this round, we will have 24 bean stitches. 24 little bean stitches, but 48 stitches in our stitch count because of the chain 1 to close the bean stitches. Okay, coming up here on the last bean stitch of the round, we're going to join to the first bean stitch and chain 1. And we're to the last round of the pattern. We are going to slip stitch in each stitch around to finish off the pattern. And you'll see what I was referring to of how it'll kind of start to pull that curled edge out just a bit as we slip stitch around. So let's go ahead and slip stitch to the end of the round. Last slip stitch here of the round. Let's take our stitch marker out, join, and fasten it off. Tighten my middle there. I'm going to weave in my ends here in a minute, but here we go. I've made a couple. After you weave in your ends, here is what your finished scrubby will look like. You can see that that round of slip stitches kind of pulls that flat, and you've got these nice little bean stitches that provide texture and a little sheen to this cotton yarn that we used. And I hope you enjoy the pattern, and thanks for joining me.